I think the chorus has to go something like this. Where the direction and orientation man chooses is determined by selected morals and values, which reflect an understanding of nature and which bring the observer out of his own perspective, that bubble which has been so crafted for him by the society and its culture, its ability to manipulate the ego and the idea of self-expression to be a small sphere around the person, a limited awareness, a blatant, out of control and somewhat ruthless individuality. They set the boundary condition, if you will, for consciousness, and then import a bunch of drugs and things like this, so it's expanded, and in the expansion you feel, which brings you to another state of awareness, a radius 50, 100, a million times greater, and through this so-called breakthrough or ego death or otherly experience, your awareness, your bubble is expanded, and people feel things are connected. They mistake this for God. They mistake this for reasoning, for understanding. But if it were such, upon coming out of the phase, you would, be able to remember, be able to make sense, be able to integrate. Well, I hope you can see past this dynamic of fabrication and then destruction, if you will, expansion. The game they play with, personal revelations that you may come to and have. What one is after, if they are wise, is the type of understanding which goes beyond their personal perspective. You can develop understanding which allows you to see beyond simply your opinion, your predisposition, which limits that actually and keeps it in check. You can get outside of the small little bubble they have manufactured for you, and you can start to acknowledge that there are different perspectives, different worldviews, completely unique value systems. But upon seeing this and taking a step back, it'd also be wise not to get trapped in the middle ground presented at this junction, where you see that people are different and divided and being played off each other and things like that, but then you come under some false type of unity. It starts out being something of tolerance, but ends up being anything goes. It leads to a bunch of horrific social conditions, because simply acknowledging differences does not mean that the tensions and the incompatibility presented is resolved to any useful, or what can you say, witnessed extent. There'll still be conflicts between groups in society, and different sects of religious thinking and ancestry. So you have to go further and seek devices and ways of thinking which are based on an understanding which is beyond the self. And this is what I would say is the God behind things, the divine reason, the connection. Is that which exists independent of these things, which draws them together to a degree. Yet, it's a little detached. It's something which allows for synastry, that different spheres of thinking and values and religions exist, and that these cultures can operate together, but not all jumbled up and mixed together. That there can be separation, definition, uniqueness, individuality, not of the particular individual, but of the nation, of the tribe, of the area, the district even. So, to give an example, I would say is not a bunch of jugs of water being spilt into a pool and shooken and swirled into a state of turbulence and mixed with a bunch of odd chemicals and everything, which is somewhat akin to the modern state of society, but instead it's all these different hills and valleys and nationalities and everything flowing into one river, into a single ocean, if you will. And the currents of this are deep and mysterious and not quite well known by any reasonable, honest observer. And it's true that the currents in modern society are not quite well known, but they're traceable, and they're traceable to evil, wicked men. Men who want to get away from anything logical, decent, beautiful, traditional, anything that honors your ancestors, anything that would make them proud, anything that makes you healthy or have vitality. So, when you come to such straits, the careful cultivation of values and morals becomes the tool. When they are effectively selected with reason for combating the disastrous societal social experiments in our culture and our ways of thinking and our language which have overtaken us. It's these threads which are the most important to follow and to tease out and to weave anew. And I think this is the task which would bear the most fruit, which is worthy, which with diligence ring true? Is that which speaks? You're not claiming to be entirely right in everyone's eyes, and you're not caring about that. You realize that improvement takes a certain harsh and realistic view about reality and the situation you find yourself in. You're not worried about moral fagging because you believe in something which is greater than the social context in which you find yourself. The times. You're attached to something more. And that's a type of inescapable energy and duty assigned to any free-thinking individual. It's the type of duty that I'm finally not shying away from. It takes something to face this reality that perhaps the most effective thing you could do is not to plunge into some activist cause, is not to fund some society. It's simply to start living in a way which upholds values, which you, upon careful analysis, have come to think ring true, that are extremely potent, which will lead to a societal functioning greater than the one you find yourself in, which will move and flow with the intelligence of reality, this creation we find ourselves in. Instead of trying to take that intelligence and flow and use it to fill up our artifices, our gods, our conceptions. It's the difference between being a vibrant, living force and being a virus without realizing it. It's identifying that in you and throughout your life you've participated willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or subconsciously, in the creation of a beast. The things I have said, the things you have said, the things we have even witnessed or allowed ourselves to be exposed to. Somewhat innocuous, benign things such as music or a Hollywood film. But this is the level that the system works on. It's your perception, it's your mind. It's the way you piece things together in your view of the world and how you string them together in sequence and the story you weave, because that story is the story we end up living out. And there's a subtle transformation whereupon viewing people doing a bunch of things that we wouldn't do, things in the movies, things which are somewhat out of the everyday experiences of life, we start to put ourselves in those person's shoes. That's the only reason why these things are captivating to watch on a most basic level, if you think about it. Because we are living through these people vicariously. But these people are in artificial environments. These people are scripted. The more we watch these scripts, the more we live a movie. The more we become scripted. The more we're running the program, which is behind the scenes, which is not about entertainment, which is not about substance of the issue, of the context even. It's about the investigation of anything your grandparents held dear. Anything of exceptional craft. Anything of cultivation of the mind, of the intellect, of discernment, of judgment, of just intolerance. These are things that we have lost touch with. These are necessities for a highly functioning and safe world. We don't need rights as much as we need people who think rightfully and evaluate themselves. That's being lost in the world. So, I'm coming to think the most effective tool for a restoration of peoples, of the type of life you want to live, is a restoration of traditional values of the family and of ancestry, of pride, of vitality, of knowledge. By stressing these values and incorporating them in our lives, that's the change that would matter, that will matter.